You're watching One Slaughter News Central. Thanks for staying with us. President of ECOWAS Commission, Omar Touray, on Sunday told the 64th Ordinary Session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government that political stability, peace and security remain critical for West African countries to attract investment that will aid development. According to him, the region's fragile democracy and persistent security challenges have affected the risk rating of the region and the flow of foreign capital and intra-regional trade and investment. The challenge, he says, is to improve the business environment to take advantage of the growing interest of investors in our local community. Mr. Touray's words are not new, but this doesn't make them less pressing. There, however, seemed to be some action towards addressing issues when he said ECOWAS has made the development of regional infrastructure and business-friendly policies a cornerstone of integration of the region. The recently commissioned International Coordination Center of the West African Power Pool in Benin Republic that now enables trade in electricity across the region is part of the said integration plan. We will look at this plan and also scrutinize his concerns over the depleting revenue of the Commission and its implications. My guest is a governance, diplomacy and security analyst, Dennis Tumbi. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
What is your most candid view of the significance of the ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of States and Government over the years?
Thank you very much for the question. If anyone would care to do a fragile state index, which basically gauges the vulnerability across pre-conflict, active conflict, post-conflict scenarios, and basically when you look at the indicators, the state's condition, factors such as security apparatus, factionalized elites, economic decline, uneven economic development, human flight, brain drain, state legitimacy, human rights, rule of law, demographic pressures, refugees and IDPs, and external interventions, then you will find that the ECOWAS area is afflicted by a majority of these. And what the ordinary session failed to concur was to introspect that majority of the instability based on the indexes that I have profiled are internal rather than external. Of course, there's an external manipulation to a certain degree, but when you look at the majority of the poverty, at least there is hope for ECOWAS because the Western Africa basically stands as possibly the economic hope for Africa. But when you look at the indicators for fragile states, then you will understand that ECOWAS is struggling with a myriad of issues that the ordinary session fails to qualify and call out their leaders on, for example, issues of adhering to constitutionalism, the decline of democracy that is bringing on board, that is onboarding military governments. And therefore, it's absolutely important for this legitimate free region of Africa to ask themselves that many years after freedom came, why are our nations plagued with underdevelopment and decline in the various other indicators that I have mentioned? And of course, when you look at ECOWAS, this is the trade agreement, which consists of, I think, round about 17 Western countries. But I believe that there's hope, but the ordinary session failed to call itself to attention on the decline that leadership has portended within this region and denying Africa the very hope of having a place to demonstrate financial and economic stability within the entire region.
Okay, I have a scripted question, but I'm going to move to something you said, and that's the decline of democracy across the region. And you're asking that ECOWAS could do so much more than they are doing. In specific terms, let's understand the structure of ECOWAS in the first instance is one that is dependent for its survival on the various governments across Africa, across West Africa. So what in specific terms, what actions in specific terms do you think that ECOWAS could have taken? Let's talk about the recent coups across the region that they could have taken that would establish them as an authority that can actually move the needle for the betterment of the region?
ECOWAS, which was established in 1975, we need to do sort of a chronological assessment and ask ourselves, what has ECOWAS achieved from 1975 through the Treaty of Lagos, which its sole mission was achieving economic integration across the region. However, the reason why ECOWAS is stumbling on this very objective is because ECOWAS is struggling to advance its agenda due to extreme political volatility. When you look at almost, if you like, 60% of its member nation are struggling with intra-political volatility. Its members are struggling with perpetual civil wars, and this is crippling the strength of ECOWAS in itself. So ECOWAS must first deal with, ask its members to deal with the strength of their own country, and in dealing with the strength of their own country is then to strengthen intra-country apparatus, then that they'll be able to make a strong ECOWAS at the end of the day. Weak member states, weak ECOWAS. Strong member states, strong ECOWAS. You know, and I've just concluded a tour to West Africa. I was in Liberia and some of the nations around there. And one of the things that is staggering is that you will see an even economic development. You will suddenly see factualized elites. You know, you will understand that the nations are very fragile when it comes to security operators and a huge brain drain. There are nations that are members of ECOWAS that, yes, they have a president, but there's a question of state legitimacy. You understand? They have
Dennis, I might sound a bit naive when I ask, how can, for instance, the question of legitimacy, I don't know if I'm getting the word right, how can ECOWAS step in such a situation to help redirect whatever country that is afflicted towards democracy? Is there something they can do? Because what we've seen so far is ECOWAS issue sanctions. We'll come back to the questions later, but what you're saying is important as well. ECOWAS issues sanctions, and that's basically what we hear, and that's where it ends. So what can they do in the case of legitimacy you've highlighted to redirect the people?
I believe you've asked an important question now. If ECOWAS is going to be an outfit that doesn't have any teeth to bite, that cannot discipline its members, then ECOWAS itself will have no potency to drive the economic question and objectives that it has. It will be absolutely futile then to have ECOWAS. I mean, because if your members are not going to be members that bring strength into ECOWAS, but rather contribute to the weakness of the region, then if ECOWAS does not have any instruments to crack, to strengthen its members, to kind of strengthen, intra-democracy, to strengthen the security apparatus within, then ECOWAS itself will have to wrestle with sort of the military governments that are coming into place. And therefore, essentially, they'll never want to deal with them whatsoever. And they will find other avenues to trade. You understand? So if ECOWAS does not crack on the issue, state legitimacy, demographic pressures, human rights and the rule of law, human flight and brain drain, and then the economics will never work. It's not going to be possible. So if ECOWAS does not have the teeth to bite to its members, if ECOWAS cannot breathe virtue to its members, then ECOWAS ceases to be a useful outfit to the prosperity
you keep using
and
the
prosperity
clause
of the West African nations.
You keep using the clause if. Has ECOWAS done something in recent times? Let's go back to the session that they just had. One of the things that Mr. Touray talked about was acknowledging that the democracy is fragile in Africa. He's also talked about how the insecurity in the region is impacting investment, and they want to drive investment, and they are now calling on leaders to take the initiative to attract this investment. We flip to the picture that was painted by Mr. Touray and then what he wants to achieve. Is it possible? You keep if, but have they done anything actually, of note that encourages optimism that the call that they are putting to the leaders will amount to anything?
I don't think vain optimism delivered anything for anyone. And I think if you looked at that letter and that statement, it was a statement that painted a lot of desperation. Frankly speaking, is that what all these things have done is that they have heightened the political risk. Basically heightens country risks, country by country. If anyone is going to come and invest, they're not going to invest in ECOWAS as an amorphous organization. They will look at the opportunity that they have in the member states. And if majority of those member states then have bad country rating because of the political risk, because of issues of state legitimacy, some of them have major human rights and the rule of law scores, no investor is going to desire to put their money in. But more so, one of the staggering things that statement brought into place was the mention of European Union. And I was surprised because this is external intervention, where the whole statement was alluding to, we may not be getting anything good from member states, and we are looking up to the West. We are looking up to Stanos to try and give us what we can. I mean, when you look at the question of electricity, the fact that there's water, there's renewable energy within that region, possibly more than any other region, you will wonder why that has not come internally. Yet the Western community, or the European Union specifically, has to come and aid these nations that have been free for so long. I mean, it's strange to say that, but I am at the place where I would have to confess that all hope is not lost, because Western Africa has the greatest economic hope in Africa, Western and the East. The poverty is highest within the Central Africa region, followed by the South African region, and then East and West Africa respectively seem to be the beacon of hope when we're talking about the economic prosperity in the country. But we have to call ourselves to attention as Africans and introspect on why we haven't had to produce anything much at home, and we are still relying on external interventions. And those external interventions is the loudest accusation when it comes to the military coups.
Okay, I really don't even know which of the questions to pick really and I'll put to you, but let's see if we can talk about the positives. You said it's not all gloom and doom, and ECOWAS is talking about improving, developing infrastructure and having a business-friendly policy as one of the cornerstone of the integration. He highlighted the recently commissioned International Coordination Center of the West African Power Pool in Benin Republic as part of the body's integration plan. So let me see if we can look at some of the positives that they've done. Is this one of them? What can you tell us about the project, WAP, and its significance to the outlined goal of improved integration?
And I said all is not lost. We have to be hopeful as African states. The ECOWAS region, or the West Africa region, basically has an economic output of $760 billion annually, which technically represents around 0.76% of the global economy. The value of exported goods from these 15 or thereabout countries is about $146 billion per year. Looking at the last count, there is need perhaps to push that representation around the world to maybe, even if it's 1% or 2%, contribute to the global economy. Intra-trade or cross-nation trade is something that basically will improve this economy. The export of goods, when you look at a nation like Israel, Israel is largely an export economy. And therefore, the West Africa region lacks nothing, from oil and gas, to minerals, to water, to a prudent forest cover. The West African region can be the hub of production and be an export economy at the end of the day. And they need to reduce external interventions at the end of the day, and they need to reduce their country risks.
Okay, I need to redirect a little. I want you to talk on the West African power pool in Benin Republic. Are you aware of it and what it means for electricity generation in the region?
And that's what I said at the end of the day, and I talked about production. When you look at electricity, energy is the platform by which nations run. So what is electricity good for? You need to look at that at the end of the day. And that's the reason why I posited and I said that Israel is an export economy, because Israel itself has 9 million people that cannot form a proper, buyer's base, So if West Africa region converts itself as a potent export of goods region, you're looking at what they're doing currently at $146 billion per year at the last count. That can increase double digits. It's what we use that electricity for, to power our economy, to bring in revenue. The other thing that can do in terms of it being an export region is at least it will kill an even sort of wealth distribution. You'll be able to create jobs here, left, right, center. At the end of the day, there are a myriad of possibilities within innovation, the techie, production, agriculture, technology-driven, that electricity can bring to us at the end of the day. And some of those nations that are crippling.
We have about 5 minutes left on the program. So I want you to talk about something else. I mentioned it at some point in the course of this conversation, and that is funding of ECOWAS. Mr. Touray called attention of the leaders to the depleting revenue of the Commission, and he attributed this to challenges in assessing community levy. Because of time, I think we can all deduce what community levy is. But if we remove countries under sanctions that are not bringing this community levy, is what ECOWAS getting enough to discharge her responsibilities adequately? That's on the one part, because we don't have time. I'll just put the questions together. The other part is, how can the ECOWAS body look away from this levy and find other ways to improve on the financial inflows into the Commission for them to carry out their responsibility?
I think what ECOWAS was communicating in very short words was ECOWAS was shouting that members are not committed to the strengthening of ECOWAS. Because you give to what you love. And it means that if members are not contributing properly and ECOWAS is weak in terms of executing its mandate because its resources are depleted, it shows that the commitment of the 15 to 17 members is very weak. And therefore, ECOWAS must look at ways, again, of instilling discipline and commitment to its members. But more so, ECOWAS must show that it's useful to its members. you need to, maybe there are many underlying issues why members are not contributing. I believe that it's not a lot of money to contribute. And perhaps over time, some member states have not seen what ECOWAS has brought on board. So ECOWAS also needs to flex its muscles and deliver economic gain to some of these nations. And those nations, and they'll see the importance of having ECOWAS. ECOWAS also will need to explore other funding methods that are internal. If it's driving business to countries, then it can levy the businesses at the end of the day. So there are many other proposals that ECOWAS would be able to gain financial freedom and strength, technically, other than taxing their members and perhaps increasing a sort of a lethargy in participation.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for giving us your time and sharing some insight on the existence, really, of ECOWAS and its continued significance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And to you watching, thank you very much for your kind attention while the program lasted. Do stay tuned for more programming here on News Central. For me, it is bye for now.